It was literally almost 21 years ago to today that I started this automotive career, having the opportunity to test drive the latest models. And like anything, there had to be that start, that first vehicle. And wow, this week, well, it brought back fond memories. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now, back then, that was the Chevy S10 Blazer with the upgraded Trailblazer Edition. And we all know where that went. The Blazer fell off, the Trailblazer took over, and, well, subsequent years later, well, that too ended. But wow, how things come full circle. And, well, the Trailblazer has returned. Specifically, this is the 2021 Chevrolet Trailblazer. And, well, it has brought back fond memories of both where I began and, well, it too. Now, a brief history lesson. If you recall, the Blazer debuted back in the 60s alongside the Bronco, kind of a competition of sorts, and lasted for the next several decades, coming to an end at the end of the 90s with the Trailblazer taking over in the early 2000s. Now, certainly the Trailblazer didn't last as long, a little bit of a shorter shelf life, but here it is again holding on its own. The Blazer certainly as well a model over there at General Motors. Now, what we like with where we are is, well, they brought back a little bit of ruggedness to this size segment. Basically, a lot of the other compact offerings just a little too, well, weak around the edges. This one definitely delivering a little bit more ruggedness. Now, this one is the Activ model, basically giving you exactly what I want. Nice kind of off-road lookish, not too, well, cookie cutter or cutesy. This can definitely handle its own, not just in the grocery store parking lot, but also, well, maybe in the middle of a field. In my opinion, it's the profile that really sets the tone for the Trailblazer, well, blazing its own path and separating itself from the competition. Now, while the competition is somewhat chiseling things up and angling, well, this a little bit more squared off and straightforward. Now, in this segment, what you're seeing up front specifically is more of a nosing effect. Some of the competition really angling quite dramatically at the bottom and the top, almost like they're nosing into this segment, unclear of really how to fit in. Specifically at the back end, the competition again angling quite a bit and just getting a little bit more chiseled up than I prefer. Here on the Trailblazer, a little bit more squared off lines. You could, well, draw a straight off line here and come down, and that just gives it more of a less quirky design. Now, what I like first off, this particular model, the contrast look. The roof lines in the industry are starting to kind of get their own adornment, their color, separating itself from the body with a two-tone approach. Body color all the way around. And when you get down to the lower third, a nice heavy cladding, really sweeping quite broadly around the four corners and down here at the bottom. Some of this segment really going minimalistic at the bottom, but this quite substantial. Now, by the numbers, the vehicle does fit in quite nicely again between the Trax and the Equinox, around about 173 inches overall, wheelbase almost 104 inches, width about 6 feet wide and just over 65 inches tall. Now, this is the all-wheel drive version, so it's going to have a little bit more overall prowess, get a little bit more ground clearance compared to the standard front-wheel drive. Now, when it comes to lift off the ground, really couldn't find a true number from Chevy, but a quick internet search gave me an average of around about 7 inches. Decent ground clearance for a vehicle that, again, is somewhat planted to the road. Now, as I sweep around the Trailblazer, again, I like the subtle approaches to the design. Really right up here at the hood, nice and broad with just modest touches with some raised elements through the middle. Again, no real sweeping down. You can almost call it blunt force trauma, something I refer to as late, when really the front end is just nice and squared off. Even right down the profile, midline could go status quo, which pretty much means it sweeps all the way to the back, but instead dives off here at the rear doors and then is picked back up in this upper portion, really coming quite nicely to this sweeping out effect on the rear haunches that again encapsulates the overall look of the rear taillight. Now, one other thing while we're here, ingress made nice and simple. Smart key system, keep it in your pocket. Simple access button at the front doors. Press it once, unlocks on this side. Press it again, unlocks all the rest. And you know my point of contention, put the button at all access points. Lastly, security at the fill-up area. Not going to be found here on the Trailblazer. Also old school when it comes to the cap system. With the scaled down approach to the Trailblazer, one area you think would be just as scaled down would be there on the inside, but that was Far from the case with great legroom numbers, overall passenger comfort, even more so the great cargo here at the back end. Now, before we dive in, let's talk about some other design cues. Now, I talked about the really differentiation between the color of the roof and the body, but you'd almost say it's a trifecta kind of look with a darkened gray here on the roof line, these glossy black accents, and again, the contrasty white exterior, really differentiating the overall design here on the outside. Now, as for the back, nice backup camera, backup sensors, and this kind of extra accents down below. Now, one thing I really wish would come back is the operation of the rear glass. Even smaller SUVs back in the day had this operational. Now, back in the day, of course, they were a lot more vertical than what we see here, a little bit more laid back approach, but allowing this to kind of swing up and be operational, again, would make this active addition, well, just be more active because, well, long skis need a place to hang out, and this would be the perfect opportunity. Lastly is what's in here. Now, before we get it there, you got to release it. And what you're going to find is a nice electronic release right here. Really just swings up out of the way, really give you nice vertical height to this rear hatch, easily handling my overall tall frame. What you're going to see is a really nice open approach to the cargo area, about 25 cubic feet as you see it. That's going to more than double when you lay the second row flat. Now, when you dive in here, you're really going to notice kind of this elevated amount of space right through here. You're thinking, well, this platform just seems so much higher than it should be. And that's because, well, there is a nice deep well underneath to handle specifically the spare tire, the jack operation, and a little bit of extra cavernous area if you need to store some gear. One thing I do like, when you need to access this area, it has a nice niche to keep this elevated. Another point is you can lower this than what we first saw. Basically taking this, put it in this lower tray, and that's going to give you an even lower overall platform. So different elevations, again, accommodate different features. Also nice little extra niches on the outer side and some tie downs here at the 4 points. One last feature about the cargo area, you will find a light here on the side, illuminates the rear floor quite well. One thing you won't find is any connectivity in the back when it comes to powering things up. Just couldn't find any type of outlet. Now, when transitioning from people to cargo, really nice and easy with this kind of 80-20, 70-30 split second row seat. Pretty much nice handle on the outer side. And you do have these articulating rear headrests, just flip down like that. But what I found is, well, you really don't have to do that. You can pretty much pull the handle right here, lays down with ease. Even with these front rows in their almost furthest back position, and again gives you a nice flat seamless cargo floor from back to front. Now, when it comes to power in the hood, I didn't expect a V6, but certainly planned for a 4-cylinder. Seems to be the status quo across the industry, but just not the case here. Instead, Chevy delivers 2 options, both turbocharged inline 3 cylinders. You have either the 1.2 liter or the as-tested 1.3 with modest differences between power between the two. Now, what you have is roughly 137 horses or the as-tested 155 horses. Foot-pounds of torque, 162 on the base engine or 174 as you see it here. Now, when it comes to transmission, the smaller engine is coupled to a CVT, while this got the 9-speed automatic. Now, I mentioned earlier about really this sizing up here on the inside with the overall feeling so much bigger than you'd expect, and really what I'm referring to is both comfort and legroom numbers. Now, what you're going to find up front is just shy of 41 inches, but the big number is here in the second row, around about 39. Even more so is the overall comfort. Really standard bench styling, but it's nice and cushiony, really not too hard and uncomfortable. Also, again, a little bit of sculpting on the outer side, feeling somewhat luxurious and again, individualized. Now, through the middle, you do have the good old standard armrest, dual cup holders, just giving you an extra level of comfort. Even more with the ground clearance, no real argument for feet space because that proverbial hump is somewhat subdued. But again, the big number is legroom, and even for my 6'2" frame, what you're finding is great overall feel. Really, with these seats all the way back, I'm still having plenty of overall room. And what you're also seeing is a cathedral-like feel when it comes to headroom. Basically, great comfort on a somewhat scaled down vehicle. Other creature comforts, backseat driver is going to be in the form of connectivity in the form of USB, USB-C, and traditional power outlet. What you're also going to find is that little storage up above, which seems shallow, but when you put your phone in there, what you're going to find is it is fairly deep. That'll allow you to kind of store your devices as they charge. Front and center on the dash, you'll find a nice touchscreen system. General Motors really does it well with the color and ease of use. Now down below is the shortcuts as well as the home screen button. If you press that, you'll find this split screen like we see here, or press it again and you'll find other various shortcuts. For climate controls, you'll find a huge knob for temperature select. That does have a nice digital readout right here, as well as interact with the screen up above. Huge knob for the fan speed. I am a big fan of this setup, nice and symmetric. The various mode selects through the middle. Connectivity is the name of the game low on the dash with traditional car outlet, USB, USB-C, and auxiliary jack. What you also see is wireless charging down below. Really accommodates even oversized phones like mine. Just slide it forward and it'll connect right up. Other controls will be found with the auto stop, auto start feature for the engine right here, lane awareness, as well as kind of this sport mode right here, though I would say it's, well, not really needed. Lastly is the grip at the four-corner option. Just simply press that and you'll go into all-wheel drive. Otherwise, it's just standard front-wheel drive. Now that does it for this edition where we're in a test drive behind the wheel of the all-new 2021 Chevrolet Trailblazer, a blast from a past that reminded me where we both got our start. And although it took us a couple of decades to cross paths once again, well, I was quite pleased to see how we both have grown. Now, as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.